Nayos is a map that released in 3 different updates following the initial release of the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, where this map is unfortunately decently unpopular in the Guild Wars 2 community. But today I want to go across the map and talk about my 10 favorite things in the map. This could range from something super important, to something super fun, or to something that is just beautiful. So let's get started. In the number 10 spot is the overall evolution of the map, where this is a map that was completed over the course of 3 total updates, and each update added onto and expanded more to the map. Where the different areas of the map is something I want to talk about more in a bit, but I want to point out how certain areas of the map and the overall vibes of the map changes throughout the releases. Where this is something that you can see as you play through all the different story chapters, but if you played each update as it came out, you will have experienced this, which is something that I actually like a lot. It brings back some of those Living World Season 1 vibes with the whole living world idea where you see the world change around you. In the first release, Nayos is completely controlled by the Cryptis. You have a few Astral ward who were stranded here and were able to build small fortifications, but were for the most part just fighting for their survival. And as you explore this area, you're doing your best to help them out. But with the second release, we see reinforcements arrive. The Dream Connector and the Wizard's Tower that was under construction up until this release is finally activating, allowing a direct pathway between the Wizard's Tower and Nayos, where we see a ton of Astral ward all across the map now trying to claim ground where possible and help the Cryptis rebels. Then with the third release, we see that the Astral ward are here in greater numbers, but have mostly bolstered their forces with the Cryptis rebels, where they are working together to launch a full-on offensive into the Citadel of Zakros. In the number 9 spot are all the lore items across the map. This is something that we can see across the entire Soto expansion, where ArenaNet have done a phenomenal job with including a ton of high quality lore items scattered throughout each of the maps, and Nayos is no exception. As you run all throughout this map, you can come across some pretty cool things that you can interact with. Right at the start of the map, you have Captain Ferris's journal that gives a lot of good information about what is going on in Nayos and helps set the stage for the map. And as you spread out from the initial base camp, you can find more and more. I think the second release for this map did a lot better job in this regard, where you can find a ton of cool stuff located all throughout the Niagara surrounds. More journals and field reports scattered around and about the map, alongside some unique items with fun things to read. I especially enjoyed when I first got to Niagara Dreamer's Sanctum and found the Axe of Canaxai, where you can read some fun lore. With the third release of this map, there aren't too many different things you can find around the Citadel of Zakros, but if you play through the story and go through this area, there are a lot. Which those are pretty fun to read through as well. In the number 8 spot is the integration of the Skyscale into this map. With Secrets of the Obscure being an expansion that focuses heavily on the Skyscale, they obviously did just that through all the expansion maps and the different pieces of content. We see the Skyscale play an important part in different places around the Skywatch Archipelago, Omnitus, and even the Wizard's Tower, but they really took it up a notch with Nayos. This kind of goes into the idea of events in general, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, but a lot of events around this map have you using your Skyscale. In the most recent update, the main meta event has you carrying a bomb with your Skyscale in order to break the barrier. You then have to use your Skyscale to attack the towers around the castle. Throughout earlier areas of the map, you constantly see events where you have to use your Skyscale to destroy turrets or collect orbs. There's one fun event in the area around Niagara where you have to use your Skyscale to get food from the trees, to feed Cryptis, and so on and so forth throughout the map. We then also see a variety of adventures throughout the map added in the most recent release that requires you to use your Skyscale. You got a classic one with the target practice in Nayos, but you also got stuff like the free Cryptis Essence where you have to collect a bunch of orbs in a short time. One where you have to recover Cryptis and bring them to their guardians, which you don't have to do on a Skyscale, but you are able to, and it seems to be much easier doing it that way. You also have the time trial Nayos recon run that incorporates both the Skyscale and the Raptor, but you definitely do most of it on a Skyscale. And then you have the map design as a whole, which takes the Skyscale into account, with the Nayos being floating islands like the rest of the expansion, and you also got a bunch of special orbs, updrafts, ley lines, and whatnot. But you also got some stuff that is working against you in the map that you need to be careful of, like the Cryptis sweepers that will knock you super far off course if you fly too close to them while they are sweeping. In the number 7 spot are all the different temple-like structures across the map, where this is kind of a generalized idea, but a very common theme with Nayos is just how grand the architecture is. Most of the structures you come across are these massive stone cathedrals or towers and other types of buildings. Right off the bat, at the very start of the zone, you see these massive buildings, and as you progress further, you see more and more. When the zone expanded for the second update, we saw more and more of these buildings all around this area, and I just love how magnificent all of these buildings look and how they make this map look so epic. Niagara Dreamer's Sanctum houses the Colosseum of the Midnight King, which is a very cool looking area. You have the massive castle at the end of the zone with the Citadel of Zakros and the different spires around here. You have the general buildings around the commons that you can find, and just so many other places around the map that look pretty epic. A big lore idea going on in this zone is how Nayos is kind of a reflection of other planets or realms, where it makes me wonder what exactly these giant structures are, if they are from someplace on Tyria or from another realm, which I think this could be an interesting story idea to go down more in the future if they are wanting to add callbacks to this expansion. In the number 6 spot are all the different random events across the map. Looking at Inner Nayos as a whole, the event design in this map is phenomenal, mostly when it comes to the minor events that you can do. Looking at the different meta events, they are all pretty decent, but nothing too phenomenal. They are the middle of the pack when it comes to metas, but all the different events in the various different areas across the map are just super fun to play through. There is a relatively wide variety of events that you can participate in, and I haven't found any to be super annoying. We can also look at how the Skyscale has been integrated into these events, which I talked about earlier, and I love how that has been done. I will say, the achievements to redo the events over and over are kind of boring, but at least those achievements for the normal events don't take too long. Plus, there are some super fun achievements incorporated into these different events. Additionally, I'm not a big fan of the constant radio chatter across the map as you wander through it and go across multiple different event areas. But those things aside, I genuinely have an enjoyable experience just wandering around the map and participating in all of the events. In the number 5 spot are all of the achievements available in this map. This kind of relates to the previous spot because, as I mentioned, there are a bunch of events in this map that have achievements connected to them, where the unique achievements for these events are pretty fun and I have enjoyed going for them. When the first release of Inner Nayos dropped, I was super enthralled in completing all the different achievements across the map, and I completed most of them within a week of the map dropping. But with the second and third releases, I have enjoyed the achievements as well, but I haven't had the time to dive super deep into them just yet. But outside of all the event-related achievements, there are a ton of other fun achievements as well. You see some of the classic time-based achievements and dive spots. You have some super fun scavenger hunts. I really enjoy the event in the second part of the map where you have to defend supplies from the Cryptus. You have some grindy achievements as well, like how you have to gather a bunch of essence. But then you also have those less fun grindy achievements that I mentioned earlier, where you have to complete every event in the map multiple times. But all in all, this map and expansion have been great for achievements, and I really enjoy the achievements in this map, and I've had a ton of fun going for them. In the number 4 spot is the concept of how this map is designed horizontally. Now what I mean by that is that Inner Nayos is a map that was released in 3 distinct releases. Each release introduced a new section of the map that has its own achievements, areas to explore, events to complete, and so on. But the theme of each of these areas are pretty distinct to one another. Starting with the first release on the eastern side of the map, you have Hator's territory. This region is like the outskirts of Nayos. You don't have a lot of civilization, and it is mostly a few resource areas akin to farms, as well as some military outposts. Then you head west to the central part of the map that released in the second update, and you are no longer in the outskirts and are now in the city. You have a ton of Cryptus civilians all around this place, with a lot of city-like areas, towers, and more important locations. Then you head further west to the westernmost part of the map that released in the third update, and you have the Citadel of Zakros, which is the massive castle area with the huge spires and the seat of Eparch. And I just love this flow and transition through the zone, starting in the outskirts of the city, to then the city itself, to the castle overlooking the city. It's a great transition and path throughout the zone, and also feels like one of those classic fantasy vibes, but with the twist of this being a demon-infested realm that is a bunch of floating islands. In the number 3 spot is the Astral Ward camp in Memories Hollow. This is just one specific area in the map that I wanted to highlight because it is pretty cool. This is the primary outpost for the Astral Ward in Nayos. You first come across this location during the first story chapters, where you find the missing Astral Ward members, and it is a pretty decent camp. But with the second update, we see it become reinforced with more Astral Ward, and the portal to the Wizard's Tower is now present in the camp. And this camp is a pretty important strategic location for the Astral Ward across the map and plays an integral part in their campaign here. But if you take all the lore and story important parts of this camp and set it to the side, I really enjoy everything you can find around this camp. Yes, you have the lore books like I mentioned earlier, but there are a ton of super fun models and decorations in this place that come together beautifully. I like these small tents you can find dotted around the camp. I like this larger tent that is near the portal. I like the tiny bonfires that the Astral Ward are using for heat. I like these canoes that the Astral Ward use to go out on the water to fish and probably scout out the area. I love all the different sacks, crates, barrels, wagons, baskets, and more bits of supplies all throughout the camp. You got some random planks of wood just sitting around, this chest, a bunch of random armor, this massive tank filled with something. Just all in all, this camp is a really cool spot with a ton of fun decorations. In the number 2 spot are the various rundown houses you can find throughout the map. You can find these all throughout the Nayos surrounds. When I first saw them, I was slightly captivated because most of the buildings around here are those temple-like structures that I talked about earlier, where these ones seem kind of like ordinary traditional houses you would find in places like Kryta. And I thought these were just a super cool vibe, and it makes a lot of sense to see a bunch of these around the city because the cryptids need a place to live. It's like a mixture of cryptid architecture with a dreary human architecture. You have these elegant looking but also slightly disturbing pillars around the building with some cross beams of the same style. But then you have stone walls with some wooden supports and a wooden roof on these buildings that are put together in a way that makes these buildings look super old and run down. You also then have these dark red windows that are very airy. Going back to what I talked about with the temples with Nayos being a reflection, I continue to wonder what these houses are a reflection of. But altogether, they are just a super cool model, and I love their addition to the map. But now, for the number 1 spot, for my favorite thing in all of Inner Nayos, and well, it's the rivers and waterfalls, where this is a super interesting idea to think about because Nayos feels like a very bleak, gray, sad atmosphere, devoid of any happiness. But you can find these waterfalls and the water across the map that do something super interesting to this map. They both feed into the bleakness and sadness, but also add some natural beauty to the map, while also providing a very beautiful piece of storytelling. A big theme with the post-release updates is how the cryptids aren't necessarily an evil faction. They are controlled by an evil dictator, and then you got a bunch of other cryptids who are evil in his footsteps as well. But a lot of the cryptids around this map just want to live their lives like a normal civilian in any other nation, and you see a lot of cryptid rebels fighting with the Astral Ward. Where Nayos may seem like an incredibly bleak environment, but there is some beauty in this map for those who live here, because this is a location or a kingdom that people live in. We see the houses we just talked about earlier, we see the different events where we help out cryptids, and so on and so forth, where this kingdom has waterfalls and rivers like most other kingdoms across Teria. You have a variety of uses for such waterways like transportation, sustenance, or entertainment, but I think those ideas I was just thinking about is such a beautiful concept. Wish I may be reading into it a little too much, and at the end of the day, it's just water. But across the board, they are all beautiful. I've talked about my favorite rivers and waterfalls already in this series, and I've talked about how much I love both of those a lot. And as we look across Inner Nayos, we can see many beautiful locations and scenic shots with these rivers and waterfalls. You also have the Mirror of Everlasting Night at the very start of the zone that is a mirror and is also beautiful. And just all in all, the rivers and waterfalls are my favorite things across Inner Nayos. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. While Inner Nayos is a less popular map, and deservedly so for a variety of reasons, it is still a really solid map with a bunch of fun things going on in it. I have enjoyed experiencing this map, completing various achievements, participating in all the events, and doing everything else across it. If you like the style video, consider watching my top 10 things in Amnitus, which was the last map I made a video about. Or if you want to check one of my other top 10 lists, check out my top 10 barrels, which I made a couple of weeks ago. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.